Today is December the 19th, 2013. My name is Tanya Fincham, along with Alex Bishop. We're with Oklahoma State University and working on a project called 100 Year Life. And today we're in Norman, Oklahoma to speak with Dr. William LaFon, a retired physician. So thank you for having us today. Let's start with having you tell us when and where you were born.
I was born in a farm that my dad was running just south of Edmond, Oklahoma. And I apparently got there about 3 hours before the doctor did. And my brother said that that was the last time I ever hurried.
And so when were you born?
I was born October the 8th, 1913.
And how many brothers and sisters do you have?
I had 3 brothers that lived to adulthood. My mother had one set of twins, and one of them died at about 18 months. And there was a daughter that died shortly after birth. And so just the 4 boys grew to maturity.
And what order were you? Were you the baby or?
I was the baby.
You were the baby. And you were slow, huh? And your parents were farmers?
No.
No?
My mother was a housewife and did a lot of interior decorating of the houses, paper hanging, painting, putting gas stoves up, taking them down at the proper time. And she was a very talented lady.
She was also a college graduate, wasn't she?
Yes. And Dad was also a college graduate. And the way Dad got here back in, about 1903, somewhere along in there, he traded with he was working in the post office in the Pullman out of Chicago. And this fellow wanted to come to Chicago, and he lived in Oklahoma, and Dad traded with him. And he apparently delivered mail on Northwest 3rd Street with a horse and buggy. So it was a long time ago. And my oldest brother came in 1901.
1900 or 1901?
When
he was born.
There. Next brother was about that lived was about 3 years after that, and Mother went to Missouri to have those 2, and Then after that brother, 6 years later, on the very same day of the month and year of the month, she had twins, and one of them lived
18 months.
about 18 months, and passed away. And then I came along in 1913, and probably a surprise to my mother, because she was 46 when I finally arrived. So, but,
did your father continue to be a mail carrier?
Actually, he did postal clerk for a long time. Got tired of standing around the windows and bid on a mail route in downtown Oklahoma City for a few years before he retired.
Would you ever go on the route with him? No. Where did you go to elementary school?
Do you know where Putnam Heights is?
Mm-hmm.
That's where I went.
Okay.
And the principal was Mrs. Fox. And she was a disciplinarian, and didn't tolerate a lot of cutting up.
Did you have first-hand experience at that?
No, I observed it. I was, shall we say, corrected a couple of times in my early life. But no corporal punishment was experienced.
And so where did you graduate from high school?
I graduated from Central High School in Oklahoma City, and that was back in 31.
That'd be about
Let's
right.
see,
31. 18, you're 18.
somewhere along. And
Did you have a favorite subject in high school?
pardon?
A favorite subject?
Yeah, getting through.
But you fell asleep sometimes.
Huh?
You fell asleep sometimes in class,
No.
didn't you? Because of your job?
I didn't go to sleep.
Oh, you didn't? I thought you told me you did.
So you had a job during high school?
Well,
Elementary.
Oh,
I
elementary.
delivered papers from the time I was about 6 or 7 years old up until the time I graduated from high school.
By foot or on bicycle or?
No bicycle. And I was, my route was, the favorite route was Northeast 9th Street. And it had a rooming house from the railroad tracks to Walnut, and then it had apartments and single residence And finally, the last east block was black, and they were the best paying customers I had. So I was a little partial to them. And down in the rooming house area, you go down to collect for papers every week, and when the light went on in their room, you went up and collected, because if you didn't, by Monday they didn't have any money. So I got along. I made money on that route, but the one that was I took the route over from was losing money every month. So he didn't do any good business.
He didn't figure out the best time to go.
Well, some reason or other, when I took over, he was taking 15 to 20 papers more than he had customers, and you can't
To pay for them.
do any good that way.
How much was a paper for a week back then?
For the 13 copies was, I believe, 20 cents. But they had the Oklahoman and the Times and the Sunday paper, so we delivered 3 papers to a lot of them. Some just took the morning paper and Sunday, and some of them just took the Times. So, and we did all the collection, and we paid for the papers. And we had to put the papers on the porch or at the door in the apartment house, the rooming house. We'd put the paper down at the door. So things have changed a heck of a lot.
Now they just chuck it and it lands wherever, huh?
What about the route you were offered in Norman?
Oh, folks moved to Norman when I was a freshman in high school, and they offered me a route 7 miles long that had 70 customers, and I told them that I didn't want it.
So what'd you do?
I went back to Oklahoma City after school. After I spent a freshman year here at Norman, and then I went back to Oklahoma City and bunked out with various people at a price, and had this route, and I delivered can't remember, it was seems like it was close to 200 papers in the 8 blocks.
And how'd you wake up?
Well, you rent a room and nobody to wake you up. The alarm clock didn't wake me up. Finally, I solved that. I had a metal wash basin, and I set the alarm clock in that metal alarm clock. That wake you up.
What time of day?
Huh?
What time of day?
2:30 to 3, somewhere along there. But you go to work and pick up your papers by 3:30 anyway.
A.M.
A.M. and go in and get through about 6:30 or 7 o'clock, then get to school by 8 o'clock, and then in the afternoon, as soon as you picked up your papers and deliver them, and then the Oklahoman, you had to go out and solicit new customers 4 or 5 days a week, and collect on Saturday. You're a busy individual.
And when did you do homework?
What was that?
Didn't you deliver to Mom's house?
What?
Didn't you deliver papers to Mom's house?
No.
I thought you backed into a cactus or something.
No, she lived across the street from one of the page police. They distributed the papers to
Oh, okay.
but that was on Phillips, and they moved around a lot.
Yeah.
So once you finished high school, what did you do?
I started pre-med.
Where, at OU?
OU. And graduated from high school, I guess it was 31, and spent 2 years pre-med, and then I graduated from medical school at 37.
From OU too, or?
OU.
So when did you decide you wanted to be a physician?
When I was about 7 years old.
Okay.
Somewhere along in there. They had story of one of Dad's brothers was a doctor, and he was in the horse and buggy days, and one of his TB patients left him a bearskin coat, and he was wearing that bearskin coat in inclement weather, and developed TB and died. And I decided some reason or other that I'd be a doctor. So I never did get a bearskin coat though.
Was med school pretty tough?
Pardon?
Was med school pretty tough?
Yes. You go to school at 8 o'clock and I have lunch at noon. And at 1 o'clock you go back to school till 5. And then you're supposed to study a couple of hours for each hour you're in class. You soon run out of energy.
Well, once you graduated, what did you do?
A friend of mine and I looked at the places for internship, and we picked out the ones that paid the most and applied there, and were accepted at Wichita, Kansas at the Wichita Hospital, which was run by a Catholic organization. But we were the 2 interns for the entire hospital, and spent a year there, and then they had what they called a residency at Sedgwick County residence, and applied there and got accepted. Found out that what we actually did, we took care of the indigent people in Sedgwick County, and if we got in trouble, we could call a staff man and he'd help us out. And we didn't really call them out very often. So we got along pretty good there. And at the end of the residency, a friend that was physician supply type representative from Kansas told me about the place needed a doctor, and so I had gotten married, and we went down and looked it over, and some reason or other we just decided that was where we were supposed to be. So we moved to Winoka, Oklahoma.
Didn't he write you a letter or something and give you a price for his clinic?
What?
Didn't Dr. What's the doctor's name?
Dr. Clapper?
Yeah, didn't he write you a letter and give you a price for the clinic? And
Oh, no, we did that verbally. I asked him how much he wanted for his practice, and he said he didn't have any practice left. And so he sold me his office equipment and all for $500, $50 down, and $50 a month until we could do better. And so we rented a little house there, and it was little. Now this is a little house, but that would fit in and leave a space for another one just like it. The bathroom was so small that they had a little tub. You could wash your ears and knees at the same time.
So, and how long did you stay in Winoka? Winoka? How long did you stay?
I was there 7 years, and did general medicine. We also did surgery, not there, but at Alva.
How'd you get paid?
Huh?
How'd you get paid?
Oh, we took a lot of things in. Even had got one horse for the kids. And
Tablecloths and you got a tablecloth, I think.
Oh, that no. Winoka was a division point on the Santa Fe, and had the smoking engines those days instead of the diesels like they have now. But it had a roundhouse, they worked on the diesel, the engines there, and they had a group of apartment business, just little places for the Mexicans to live that worked on the tracks and in the roundhouse. Gave it to my wife because of appreciation of the way we took care of them. And interesting things happened.
Yeah.
Had one call out there for the home delivery. Got there, and the lady was Mexican, and there was a 1.5-year old child on the bed beside her, and everybody just disappeared, left this Mexican lady that was in labor and me, and that baby was asleep on the bed, and the Mexican lady didn't speak English, and I didn't speak Spanish. I had one phrase, "Tiene usted dolor?" and we got the baby and got it almost cleaned up before anybody showed up. And
What does that phrase mean?
do you have pain?
Oh, okay.
And the baby on the bed.
Huh?
And the baby on the
And
bed.
the bed was still asleep.
Do all of that.
So you made house calls.
Well, we made house calls, did home deliveries for about 3 years. We got 40 miles out from the closest hospital and had a shoulder presentation. The shoulder was coming out first, and a situation like that, you got to do something, and you do it in eternal version. But for that, you have to have an anesthetic. And I had a partially trained nurse as my assistant at that time. And she gave the ether anesthetic while I did the version. And this was all by lamplight and a wood stove flaming. And if you know ether, it is more highly explosive than gasoline. But we ended up all right. What you gonna do? You know, in those days, they always had the husband boiling water. And there's two things about it. It keeps the husband busy, and you have something to make coffee at on her food.
How much did it cost for a delivery?
$35.
What about smallpox shots?
$1. We had 5 cases of smallpox in the county when I first went to Winoka, and I made a living giving smallpox vaccines, vaccinations at $1 crack. But house calls, office calls for $1, and going to house call is $2. And go out in the country, you're supposed to be able to get 50 cents a mile, but that was during the Depression.
Did you ever have any critical life or death situations?
Do what?
Did you ever face any critical life and death situations on house calls or as a physician?
Oh, most of the time just a house call. You have somebody that's critically ill.
What about the RH factor baby?
I remember you telling me when we visited the first time. I remember you telling me about the RH baby.
Oh, that RH was a factor then. I don't know whether you don't hear anything about it anymore, but if the husband is RH negative and the baby and the mother was RH positive, and those babies died shortly after birth, and had this young couple that had a RH factor. The husband was negative and the wife was positive, and I stuck a trocar in the umbilical vein at the time of delivery, and we watched the baby, and when the blood was being going down, blood count was going down, we gave her the baby 5 to 10 cc's of blood from the husband and pulled the baby through. And about 2 years later, they wanted to know if they could try for another baby. I said, oh no. And they kept after me, why don't we? And so I took blood from the mother, the father, and the child and sent it to, seems to like it was Philadelphia, that was specializing in this at the time. And they came back with, by no means should they ever try to have another baby. And not only that, but we don't know how they, one that's alive made it. So lucked out on that one.
You did good.
But
What about I'm just interested because you were in a time when the polio vaccine came out. How prevalent was polio when you were a physician in Oklahoma?
oh, we gave vaccines, lots. I don't remember polio. We had the epidemic of that. Had all the respirators that we could get, and the people lined up in the halls of the hospital just to get them in where we could keep track of them.
Oh, tell them about taking ladies to Alva to have babies.
Do what?
About the one that you took to Alva to have the baby.
Oh. Well, I had been up about 20 hours or so, and I had this lady in labor, so I let her drive to the hospital.
Oh my gosh.
And what were you doing?
I was sleepy.
Oh my gosh.
In the back seat. Because the hospital was, what, 27 miles?
24.
24 miles away.
Oh,
And did she deliver safely?
yeah.
And were you awake for the delivery?
I was working for the delivery.
Oh, and there was this girl that had appendicitis.
I'd done this residency and internship. Got there at Bordeaux, had a patient with appendicitis, and I called up Dr. Hale at Alva, asked if he'd do the surgery for me, because I hadn't even talked to the hospital about delivering, having worked there. And he says, well, Dr. LaFon, you done an appendectomy, he said, in your residency, Evans. I said, yeah. He says, well, why don't you come up and do it, and I'll help you. And you need it, if I need to, I can finish it up. And so went up and did my first operation on a bed in my 7 years at Winoka. But he took care of, he helped me on a lot of cases after that.
So after Winoka, where did you go?
I moved to Alva,
where the hospital was.
where the hospital was, and joined a clinic. And came along in 1953. They called up and said, hey, Dr. LaFon, we have a quota for one doctor from Woods County to come into service. And you and Steve are the only ones available. The others were too old or whatever. And Steve had one son that was accepted to medical school and two sons that were ready to go to college. My son was ready to go to high school, and she is
7th grade.
7th grade. And so I told him I would go. And so I went into service.
The Air Force, right?
Well, I applied for the Navy, but they said that they had no openings for what I would be eligible for. And so I talked to the Air Force and joined the Air Force and spent 5 weeks in medical officer indoctrination and then 3 months for a flight surgeon type of assignment.
And what rank did you go in as?
I went in as a major.
How'd you do that?
From my private practice.
And ROTC, they counted that?
Oh, yeah, they gave me credit for ROTC and
Nasty guard.
Nasty guard, yeah.
And private practice.
So I had a little experience. But I got out and they said, well, where would you like to go finishing up from the School of Aviation Medicine? And where would you like to go overseas? Well, I had a nephew that had been in Spain, so I'd like to go to Spain. And I said, no, closing that out. And they had me scheduled to go to the 3rd Air Force in Great Britain. And got as far as Prestwick, Scotland. And they landed there and briefing all the people that were on that aircraft and others. And they said, Major LaFon would like to talk to you after the briefing. Woke up and they say, how would you like to go to France? I'd been in for 4 months, 5 months, and didn't know any better. And I said, oh, all right. They hand me this pack of orders, and I go in the transportation and throw them on the desk and say, I'm gotta go to France. He looks at it and, oh, that's too bad. I'll send you the best way I can. So he sent me commercial air, railroad in Britain to one of the big places, then back to London on the train. And walk in and says, sorry, I can't get you out today. I'll get you out tomorrow. But we'll put you up in the hotel there. Whatever. In London. And so I wandered around in London for a little bit, but the next day I go out and there's another Air Force major in this aircraft, and I sat down beside him. He gets along and says, oh, do you have transportation? I said, no. He says, well, I'll have a staff car waiting for me. My office is down in Bordeaux, but I'll drop you by the Air Force base. And get in about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And, oh, we're glad to see you. Welcome aboard, all this sort of stuff. And then they took me down and got me a room in one of the little hotels in Bordeaux and told me how to get back. And the next morning, about 10 o'clock, I get back on base and walk up to them, and they hand me some new orders. I'm hospital commander.
Of that base? On that base?
Yeah. 50-bed hospital. But,
and you kept being hospital commander the rest of your career, didn't you?
Almost all of it.
And how long were you in the service then?
Well, they came, Ann and John came over with their mama, and at Christmas time, and then so they wouldn't have to change schools from where they were. I extended for 3 months, I think. And instead of getting out, I told them if they would give me an assignment in Oklahoma, Texas, New Mexico,
You need some more.
or Colorado, I stayed in. So they gave me an advance, and that was halfway between where my parents and all lived and where I had practiced.
So you stayed in for more than one round.
A total of, when you retired, you'd been in how long?
20 years.
You had hardship, assignment to Bermuda, and he was in South Carolina and England Air Force Base in Alexandria, Louisiana, and Clinton Sherman. So actually, 3 times in Oklahoma, which is very unusual for you to be assigned to your home state. And his last assignment was Tinker, where he was hospital commander.
So
what year did you get out then?
I got out in 73.
73.
I was.
And then what did you do?
Do what?
And then what did you do?
Well, I got figured out cost me 6,000 or 60,000 to set up in practice, and I didn't figure on practicing too long, so I took a job as a general practitioner and worked on tanker as a civilian.
Civil service. Yeah.
5 years.
That'd put you up to about 65 years old then.
Pardon?
You were about 65 years old at that time. And then you retired?
That time I had retired from the Air Force, and after about 3 months I decided I wasn't any good for me or anybody else, and so I took a job at the fans at Tinker. Spent 5 years at that.
So he's retired twice.
Retired again.
And then what did you do?
I messed around.
When did you become a master gardener?
Do what?
When did you become a master gardener? Was that after you retired?
Oh. No, I think it's still working at Tinker.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, friend of mine and I took Master Gardener, first Master Gardeners in Oklahoma.
What did you raise?
Oh, we raised, I had all kinds of fruit trees.
Yeah.
And tomatoes. Tried squash and the bugs got there before I did.
You had pecan trees and what, apricot, pear, apple, a whole bunch of trees in a big garden.
Yeah.
And now roses is his, but he put in a garden last year.
Oh, really?
Yeah, what'd you have in your garden this year?
We had tomatoes and okra and strawberries,
Peppers
peppers.
and he likes roses real well.
Got about 20 rose bushes now.
And well, my question for you is, thinking about today, did you ever think you'd make it to 100?
Never considered it.
But how old was your mother?
Mother was 96 when she passed away, and had a cousin on my dad's side that was in Missouri, and she lived to, what, 105, was it?
I thought you said 3, but
She was the oldest person in Missouri at one time.
And where was she lived? Where was she from?
was she from Palmyra?
Hmm.
Was she from Palmyra?
Well, originally,
Uh-huh.
but just trying to think what.
I don't know.
Can't remember.
So, what do you think the secret to your longevity is?
Well, that brings up a different. When we was interning, had a friend that was actuary in one of the insurance places, and he figured that my wife would be able to live to be about 40, and that I would be about 40. And so I made it till 100, just waiting on.
And Mom passed away in 2003.
Yeah.
She'd had lots of surgery.
Well, she had cancer of the breast, cancer of the uterus.
Well, how did you meet your wife?
That's a different story. We're in BYPU.
Baptist Young People's Union, I think it was.
But we're going to Falls Creek, and our supervisor lady had sort of influenced people to pair off, and so I was paired off with Anna Kohlberg, and Anna had a good friend, Lucille Busby, and so we went to Falls Creek, and I got sort of pairing off with Lucille instead of Anna, and we started going together.
Did you tell them about the oyster stew?
Yeah, had oyster stew, and we decided that they needed crackers with that. So Lucille and I walked from Falls Creek to Darty to get the crackers, and walked back just in time for the stew.
How far a walk was that?
But Pardon?
How far a walk is that?
That's about 5 miles
One way.
one way.
Oh my gosh.
Did a lot of talking, didn't it?
What about the ride back to Oklahoma City?
Oh, now that's we went down. My buddy had a Chrysler 51, I think they called it. Anyway, it was had a rumble seat. So
You know what a rumble seat is?
coming back, I had Anna on one side, Lucille on the other side, and singing, there ought to be a moonlight savings time so I could love these gals of mine.
So, how long did y'all date?
Oh, a little over 5 years. And finally, I bought a set of rings, wedding ring and engagement ring. And I gave her the engagement ring on my birthday. And I told her she'd have to marry me to get the other one.
And where'd you get married? Do you remember the name of the place where you got married?
Clinton.
Clinton?
Was it?
I don't know. I've forgotten. Anyway, you thought you weren't supposed to get married. Is that right?
That's right. She was in nurses training, and they sort of understood that the nurses weren't supposed to get married. So we got married secretly. And
How long did you have to keep it a secret?
I think we kept it about 2 months. But they found out she didn't have, that you could get married and finish up your training.
So today, what's a typical day for you at 100? You know, what time do you get up? What time do you go to bed? What do you do during the day?
I go to bed anywhere from 9 to 12 o'clock at night.
Mm-hmm.
Depends on what I'm reading. And then I usually get up somewhere between 6 o'clock and 8 o'clock.
What do you do when you get up?
What do I do?
Mm-hmm.
Do you read the newspaper, have a cup of coffee? Do you have a ritual?
I usually eat breakfast and drink they cut me down to a cup of Sank a day.
Decaf?
So I got a cup that holds almost 2 cups of water.
But what's the first thing you do when you get up? Don't you take your medicine first?
Oh, yeah.
And then you wait for...
Hmm.
And then you wait for a
Well,
while?
wait half an hour to eat.
Yeah.
I have medicines that I take routinely, and 3 of them are prescription medicines, others over the counter. And sometimes it gets a little hectic. I've had, I always had a prescription filled at Thompson Pharmacy there in Oklahoma City, or
Del City.
Del City. And so her husband works for Rose State, and he picks them up sometimes for me. I go to Sooner Baptist Church there in Midwest City, and the pastor has a Bible group that meets on Tuesday, and Ann takes me down for that.
Plus Bible study. What else? We have pharmacy, post office, commissary, BX,
So
Don's Alley.
you still remain active in the church then, and in your church.
No.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, I guess almost 2 years now that I quit teaching. Getting old and forgetful.
You still go to church every Sunday? You still?
I have a friend that picks me up and takes me. Mm-hmm. She and her husband go to church here in Norman.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's pretty impressive. That's pretty.
What about back to your daily routine? When you finish breakfast, what do you do? In your daily routine?
I try to have a quiet time, but sometimes it gets sort of neglected.
What do you do during quiet time?
Read the Bible and pray.
And sometimes before you go to bed, don't you also read the Bible?
Yeah, read. Yeah.
And but also, what happens every afternoon without fail?
Your daughter knows your schedule pretty well.
Every afternoon, the postman comes, and what does he bring you?
He brings me mail.
How much mail?
Oh, between 25 and 50 pieces.
Oh my gosh. Is that fan mail?
Actually, it's political stuff. And they always want money.
Are you still interested and involved in politics?
I try to stay head up on politics, but being a Republican, it doesn't work out very good sometimes.
Did you vote for Henry Bellman?
For what?
Henry Bellman?
Oh, yes.
It's going way back.
He's the first Republican governor, so in Oklahoma.
Yeah. Oh, I think I was a Democrat back then.
His mother was a Democrat. And
I have to tell you all, I'm a mixed up character. My ancestors were a little different. Mother was a Democrat, my dad's a Republican. And my grandparents were Palmyra, and my grandfather LaFon had slaves, and my grandfather Curd was an abolitionist.
my grandfather was born in 1865. My grandfather.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing? 1865.
You mentioned you read some. Do you do biographies or fiction or what? What's your favorite book of choice?
I think reading.
What's your favorite author that you've got all of his books?
Oh, Lamar.
Louis L'Amour. Yes.
I only have probably 100 of the books.
What's good is he forgets he's read them, so he can read them over.
Well, one thing I want to know is when history is written, what would you like it to say about you?
Well, what would I want them to say about me? I guess he was a nice guy. But
And if you could give anybody in Oklahoma advice or a motto or philosophy to live by, what would that be?
I would say the first thing is they should become a Christian, and that they should try to live according to His Word.
That's good.
That's one thing I've tried to help people that are evangelists. I've helped a niece and, well, actually nephew's daughter and her husband are missionaries to Papua New Guinea, and they've been there.
Oh, wow. Josiah's probably 20, so it's 8. Probably 12 years. But he says he hasn't planned for the future, but he has planned to support them even after he's gone.
Sure.
So he does make plans.
The other, I've helped in New Delhi for 30 years, a little, and have another couple that work with Mohammedans, and what they do is they are in America, and they get telephone book and go talk to people that have a name that indicates that there might be Mohammedan, and they contact them that way.
What about the girl in Bangladesh? What about the girl in Bangladesh?
Well, that's with the World Vision, and I've had I've helped on, I guess, 3 or 3 before this girl.
Mm-hmm.
That I've helped.
What's a couple of the biggest challenges for you these days?
Do what?
The biggest challenge these days for you? Do you have any?
Challenge.
Mm-hmm.
My challenge is work as much as I can to get the one president impeached.
But working through that stack of mail is a challenge too.
And I understand you were among the first to be certified physician in Oklahoma. Is that right, Alex?
You said something about you were the first group to take the board exam. Is that right?
Oh, Oklahoma comes along and they figure out that this board where all kinds of doctors, the allopath and other types and set up a board, and my class took the first boards of that,
Mm.
and it was a 3-day examination, and then after that we took the medical board another 3 days, and then we had graduation, and it was sort of we were were physically and mentally worn out.
But in 2007, they had an alumni meeting and gave Dad this special cane. College of Medicine Alumni Association Gold Cane Award. He was the oldest of your class,
Yeah.
oldest living person in his class.
And now I am the only member of the class that's still alive.
Was the exam very hard?
Do what?
Was the exam
The
hard?
board exam.
Board exam?
Oh, yes. The chiropractor was on the board, and then the osteopath, medical, and the allopath. And the chiropractor, one of his questions was describe in detail the seventh cervical vertebrae. In detail.
In detail.
I wouldn't know how to answer that question.
Did you study your cadaver? What was your cadaver's name?
Well, I don't know what his name was, but he looked like Julius Caesar.
Oh my gosh.
And
Medicine's come a long way since then.
Medicine has changed entirely. You know, the electrocardiograph, we had that to start with. After, well, I guess, anyway, first 3 or 4 years of my practice, we didn't have cardiographs. And then they had 3 places that they put the electrodes, and ran that, and we had in the county one place that like electrocardiograms, and I had a fellow from Winoka that went up for a physical exam, had this cardiograph, and they sent the cardiogram to Oklahoma City to do the consultant, and got back the cardiograph was normal, and sure enough, the fellow walked into his shop, store, and dropped dead. So it's one of those things.
What about penicillin?
Hmm?
What about penicillin?
Penicillin, came in during the Second World War, and
So you didn't have it?
you couldn't, we didn't have it for private practice, except that you could send a blood specimen up to anyway, it was up in the New England area, and if they checked it out, and penicillin was the only thing that would work where you could use it. The only trouble is that I had a patient with a odd blood specimen contaminant, and sent it up to them, and they came back after about 3 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks, said that it was work, penicillin would work, but in the meantime, the fellow developed heart plaques in his valves in his heart, and died.
You want to talk any about the farm?
Do what?
Do you want to talk any about the farm?
The farm?
Yeah.
I don't know.
There comes the bell.
Mailman.
Well, we can save that to another day.
Okay.
Had
Running out of time. They're going to have to go. They're going to have to go.
Okay.
Thank you for sharing today. It's been fascinating.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You think I had a life, huh?
I do.